I'm here today with Dr. Rachel Laws, who is a futurist, marketer, and one of the original founders of British commercial Semiotics. She supplies semiotics to brand owners, ad agencies, and marketers around the world, and she's the author of two groundbreaking books on the business applications of semiotics. Using Semiotics in Marketing was the first book to set out a step-by-step course in semiotics for marketers and market researchers, and her second book, Using Semiotics in Retail, won the Sales and Marketing category of the Business Book Award 2023. So first of all, welcome, Rachel. It's great to have you here.
Thanks for having me on the show.
It's very exciting. And secondly, this is an absolute first for the podcast, and I'm hugely excited. We're going to actually see you unbox that award, because you weren't there on the night, were you?
I wasn't there. It was kind of the whole thing was a complete surprise. So I was at home nursing a cold. I'd been on holiday and I came back with a disgusting cold, and so that's what I was doing. I was just in bed drinking Lemsip,
Thinking, oh, well, I won't have won. It's absolutely fine. I'm
No,
not missing
I
anything.
had no idea I was going to win anything. I didn't really know I was in the running, and so it just. But I'll tell you the story while I'm opening this box. Because
Okay.
look, I've got a huge box. Look, it's a massive box here.
Okay, this is terrible for anybody listening on the audio version of the podcast. But if you are watching us on YouTube, you'll see an absolutely enormous box.
It's huge. It's bigger than me.
It's enormous. Are you sure that's definitely the award, not some garden furniture?
I did wonder about that earlier when I was
unboxing something
like, what if it's just some random Amazon thing? 6 bottles of Mr. Muscle or something.
Well, whichever way, it's going to be fascinating. So
I'm pretty sure it's an award of some sort. So I'm just gonna there's a lot of tape on here. Okay, so I've got my big massive scissors and
get your big massive scissors and unbox it. That's so cool.
Let's see if we can wrestle it out of its box.
Do you know, this is actually better than having watched you receive the award on the night. I saw, was it Chris, when your publisher went up to receive the award on your behalf?
Yeah, that was my very patient publisher.
You did. I mean, you don't want to hear this, but you did miss a great night.
Were you there?
Oh, I was there, absolutely.
Oh wow, okay. Was it a good night? Huh?
It was a terrific night. It really was. It was very, very glam, very swish.
Was that? Oh, too fancy for me. Oh God, no! My
I love the idea of you going up and you feeling rotten, sort of wrapped in a bit of a duvet.
No, I couldn't. I didn't want to. You don't want to go and hand your cold around to everybody, do you? It's a really antisocial thing to do,
Yeah. We're sorry you're not there, but we're grateful you weren't there.
Well, here we are now, wrestling this mighty thing out of its box. Here we are.
When they pack it, they really want it to stay.
They really do, yeah. They really did a good job here. But what's inside? There's some
Mr. Muscle.
It's like past yeah. It's Mr. Muscle and 18 bags of Haribo. No.
Oh, that looks promising. That's a Business Book Awards bag. I recognise that tote.
Parcel. There's more packages inside the package. Look, there's a huge bag in here.
Yeah, that's the fella.
Okay, let's have a look. What is it? What does it say? Business Book Awards. All right, let's find out what's in the bag.
Genuinely excited here.
I don't know. Look, there's more than one thing. I wasn't expecting that. Okay. Oh, look. Oh, a lovely certificate.
Nice.
Very
Spelt
nice.
Everything right. Nice. Good. Yeah.
Yeah, that'll brighten up my office.
Yeah, using Semiotics in Retail, Marketing Book of the Year.
Make it look a bit more professional. I've only got the one certificate. That's my PhD in the background there. And look, here's a box. This must be the thing, right? It's got to be.
That's the thing. Yeah, it is a thing of beauty, actually.
Is that?
Yeah, we've won. Yeah, our practical inspiration, Helen Beadham's Future of Time won one, so I got to sort of see one up close and personal. We've won a few over the years, so they are very lovely.
Wow, let's have a look. Da, da, da.
Oh, look at that!
It's massive.
It's huge, isn't it? It's very highly polished.
Look at the size of it.
For those not watching this, Rachel's kind of holding it up, and you can sort of see me reflected in her screen, reflected in the award.
Look at the majesty.
Oh, I mean, it's blinding. There I am. Look, I can see
very big and shiny. It's big. It's bigger than my head. Look.
You could do someone a serious mischief with that.
That is fantastic. Well, that's great. That's going to look really nice in the background on Zoom meeting.
Congratulations. It's so exciting to have been part of it. So thank you for letting us share that. That's brilliant.
Oh, well, thank you. And thanks very much to the Business Book Awards for giving it to me. I was genuinely astonished. Because, I'm not, over the years, I've been a marketer for 25 years or something ridiculous. And I've not been in the habit of applying for awards because I'm just busy all the time, And my publisher more or less insisted that I had to apply. So I'm very grateful to them for making me do that. And I'm very grateful to the Business Book Awards for actually giving me awards. So you can imagine how surprised I was, you know. I was just like, oh, really? Do I have to fill out this form? Really? Like, they were like, yes, you do. Fill out the form and enter the awards. And then I was absolutely amazed when I went. I was astonished. I couldn't have been any more surprised.
Well, I'm really interested in the reason for that astonishment, because it's an extraordinarily well-written and useful and thoughtful book. Is it the fact that it has the word semiotics in the title that tends to put people off, that is sort of making you so astonished? Or is it just
No.
natural humility?
Humility is not something I'm especially known for. No, I think that semiotics 25 years ago, semiotics was a word that people found a bit alarming because they didn't know what it meant. And I suppose qualitative researchers were wondering if it was going to put them out of a job, and designers and advertisers were like, why is this person telling us what to do and encroaching on our territory? So, and then people in management didn't know how they were supposed to incorporate it into the market research mix. So 25 years ago, it was an alarming word. These days, I think it's a very familiar word and is quite a growth industry within marketing, you know. So a lot of brands are using it worldwide. And there are more practitioners now of semiotics than there ever have been. So that's not in itself why I was surprised. I guess I was just surprised because as I said, I didn't really have any history of applying for prizes and awards and stuff, you know what I mean? Just 'cause there's only one of me, and you know, like what, you know, I spend 90% of my time at work, and 90% of that time is I'm serving my clients and making their brands more profitable. You know what I mean? And then like once in a while, I can take time out to write, and that leaves no time at all really for anything else. And that, when I say anything else, that includes applying for things, prizes and stuff like that. So I just had no history of doing it, you know. And then so that's why I just didn't know. I didn't know what my chances were. I didn't know how many other people would be involved. You know, it seemed like other people had written good books. I didn't know anything about the awards process. I say all that. I'm actually a judge on the Market Research Society Awards. So I appreciate the amount of work that the judges have to put into this. So, you know, that's what I'm very thankful to them as well for giving me this thing, because I realised what the amount of effort that they have to make those awards happen.
Oh yeah,
But
absolutely.
as a participant or an applicant or whatever the word is, I just had no experience at all, and that's why I had no expectation of winning. And then I just about fell off my chair when my publisher contacted me the next day and said, "You won sales and marketing," you know.
There's about 18 points I want to pick back up on in there because it's so interesting. But let's start with, you might think that semiotics is now a word that is in everyday parlance for most of the population. I don't think it is. So for those who are going, well, I don't know what it means, could you just give us the kind of idiot's guide, you know, semiotics 101, what is it and how's it used in marketing?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So there's the business end of things, right? Which is that the way that I like to start is by talking about color, because it's by far the easiest aspect of semiotics for people to understand, right? It's the entry point for just about everybody with semiotics. So everyone's noticed that Coca-Cola is red and Pepsi is blue, right? And also everybody's noticed that Coca-Cola seems to have the advantage over Pepsi in terms of sales and branding, you know. So red is a very a color that's loaded with meaning all over the world. It means different things in different parts of the world. Like, we're all aware that in China it means good luck, and you know, over in the West it means a whole bunch of things like sex and energy and power, you know.
And
And
danger.
then and danger, urgency, and it also means things like number one, the original and the best, right? So it's got loads and loads of positive meanings going for it. Not just positive, but very assertive meanings, you know, almost borderline aggressive meanings,
Yeah,
you
high
know,
energy.
very assertive, bold, high energy stuff, right? Really great for any brand that wants to claim that it has always been here. It has always been number one. Monolithic brands like God, you know, it's always been here. It's everywhere. It's never going away. It's the original and the only one you even need to think about, right?
They've even linked it to Father Christmas.
That's right. That's semiotics right there, right? And then Pepsi, which is blue. You know, it's famously the case that in these blind taste tests that people actually like Pepsi more. They like the taste of Pepsi more than they like Coke. But in terms of branding, Pepsi finds it hard to compete. And one reason for that is this blue color, which is not that common in beverages. But if you think about brands and their logos, is widely used in health and technology. So you could think about IBM, the NHS, Barclays Bank, all these kinds of organizations that want to inspire trust and reliability, and I guess a sense of authority. Blue is a great color for that, but not so much for selling fizzy pop. So that is the real kind of explain like I'm five access point to semiotics for business people. But there's so much more to it than that. You know, the reason why I do semiotics is not necessarily the same reason as why my clients want me to do it for them. So the reason why academics do semiotics and the reason why I do semiotics is because it's not just about, oh, isn't that interesting? Red means sex and power and blue means trust. It's about understanding something about humans, about different cultures around the world, about what shapes our attitudes and behaviour. And it's about understanding culture in the sense of the way we live now. Why is society like it is? And this way that we live now, why are we like that? So for me, my PhD is in psychology, and I'm never going to stop being interested in these questions about our changing world and our place within it as humans. Big questions about the human condition. So that is why I do semiotics. Okay, and then my clients will say like, "This is great," you know. And when you finish telling us what color to do our packaging, can you also help us think about new opportunities for innovation? How can we bring new segments of consumers on board, and so on and so on? And that's where it gets really exciting.
And what you just touched on there actually is so interesting, because it really encompasses the range that I noticed when I was reading the book, and which really surprised me, I've got to say, because I thought it was going to be really quite technical application of tactics that you can use in marketing to give your brand an advantage. And it's all of that. And talk about the future of humanity, and there's this sort of broader sense of, you know, also anthropology and significance, and it's just fascinating. And I was really interested from, I guess, from an editorial point of view, how the hell you manage that scope and how you structure the thing and keep it speaking to its core audience while still giving them that sort of glimpse of something so profound.
Oh, thank you. That's very kind of you to say so. It was a book which managed itself. It would have been more difficult to manage if I'd tried to keep it small. But it was you probably heard lots of authors say this, right? It was a book that wanted to be written, and my only job was to deliver it. You know what I'm saying?
Yes,
It was
some
a
things just
baby that was
burn in the back of your
already,
brain. Yeah.
it was just ready to be born, and all I had to do was assist at the birth process. That was it, really, you know? So
Well, you say
I
that.
guess having said that, I don't know. I'm going to say that my ideas about this book changed about halfway through, much to the great alarm of my publisher. So when we first set out, I was in fact planning to write a book which is of a smaller scope, you know, more predictable, you know, like here are some tactics that you can use in store. And in fact, all the stuff that you see in the first half of the book, which I know is useful, and people do want that from me. I know that because they ask me about it all the time, you know. But then a number of things happened while I was writing. Notably, I realised that to write about shopping is to write about humans and their psychology, and also that to write about retail and business is inevitably to write about the future, and that I could not ignore the future, and that the world we live in is changing extremely rapidly thanks to digital culture. And it seemed to me that I had some kind of a responsibility to tell this story about where we're heading. And then in the middle of all that as well, I developed a huge shopping addiction just to keep things really interesting. So the book kind of changed direction and is a better book as a result, but it's certainly larger in scope. And yeah, but honestly, it kind of decided itself what it wanted to be.
And let us into the sort of the back channel of the conversation with the publisher around that. You know, this really straightforward book that I was writing about marketing tactics. How did you frame that conversation?
Yeah, well, actually, we're going in another direction now. But I think it's a better book as a result. You know, it would have been a useful book, but now it's, you know, I mean, I've written 2 editions of my first book plus this one, and this one on retail is my personal favorite because it asks these really big complex questions and explores a lot of interesting humans, stories about humans, you know.
It really does. And it also, as you say, that sort of personal element of, well, I'm not particularly, interested in shopping. Oh wait, it turns out I'm completely addicted. That sort of personal insight running through it was
Oh
really
my God, it
interesting.
was really a journey of discovery. I
Yeah.
learned a lot about technology, about China. I learned a lot about why people around the world are so unhappy about what's going on. Why have we got like an global pandemic of mental health problems? Yeah, I learned quite a few things about myself. It was a really interesting roller coaster of a writing journey. Yeah.
It's so exciting. Somebody needs to make a film of you writing this book. But tell me a little bit about your process as well. I mean, you say you just had to birth it, which everybody who's written a book is sort of going, I kind of know what you mean, and also it's not that simple, is it, Rachel? So tell us about your actual writing process. What tools, systems you use? What's your method?
But there is a method which I will use every time, no matter what I'm writing about, no matter what the subject matter is. So I'm not somebody who makes things up as they go along, you know. I'm very much I like structure, and I like to write from the top down. So if I've got a contract to write something new, you know, my very first question is going to be, what's the word count on
Yes.
this? You know, that's what I want to know first, because honestly, I'm getting older here. I haven't got time to waste writing stuff that's not going to get into print, you know.
Yeah.
So I don't need to be doing discovery writing for 6 months at a time, especially when I've got a business to run, you know. So I'm going to want to know up front, what's the word count here? What are we aiming for? Let's say it's 80,000 words. Okay, well, that sounds to me like it's going to be about 12 chapters, you know. And then I'll decide on a kind of on an overall story to tell across 12 chapters. So originally, when I started that book on retail, I thought I was going to tell the story was going to be about broadly about how shopping and retail looks viewed from the point of view of the consumer, and then how it looks from the point of view of the business, especially the retail marketer. That was the plan, really. But then as I was writing, I discovered that also that consumers, for the most part, live in the present day, because they don't have many choices to do otherwise, many other options. Whereas businesses are very future focused, and they have a lot of power to change and shape the future because they've got money, right? And they've got business structures and logistics, and they can make things happen, you know. So that's when I realized that I was writing about the present day and the future. But the process is the same, you know. You just kind of put a large story together, like a one sentence pitch that you could divide broadly over 12 chapters, and then I'll divide those 12 chapters into usually 4 sections. So we've got, like, you know, 3 chapters each per section. Figure out what kind of theme or topic do I want to address per section, divide that into chapters. I remember, I know the word length of everything at this point, you know. All the chapters are going to be the same length, you know. Divide the chapters into sections, and divide the sections into a number of paragraphs. And that's what I mean by working from the top down.
Yeah.
And all of that will go into Trello, because I like project management tools. So all of that will happen in Trello, and then I'll simultaneously use Trello as a kind of pinboard for collecting resources. So
Perfect.
as I'm doing all of this, I'm reading a lot.
Yeah.
God. So when I realized that I was writing a book about the future, I stopped writing and read about 40 books about the technology in the future. I had to tell Coke Poacher, don't worry, it's going to be fine. It's all going to be fine, but I'm just going to stop writing for about a month. Because I need to read all this stuff. So as I'm reading, I'll capture things that I think are important and just put them in the right bit on the Trello board, so that when I know which part of my story they are pertinent to, and then I'll just essentially just write it piece by piece, not necessarily in the same order that it appears in the book.
Yes.
Usually, to be honest with you, I'll write the I'll begin by writing the stuff that I personally think is the most engaging, because it gets my energy up. I'll do the fun bits first, honestly. I mean, it's all fun, of course, but I'll find the bits that I'm personally the most excited about and do that first, because it gets my energy up and it helps me to discover the bit of fire, which is really essential. And then that will smolder throughout the whole rest of the book. That's what you're aiming for.
It's a masterclass in how you just go about the workmanlike job of putting a book together. Absolutely love that. You've got your system, which is Trello, and it means you've got somewhere to put stuff that you find, which is if you're trying to rely on bits of paper around the house, you're doomed, aren't you? I mean, or just kind of having, save things on your bookmark bar. And you've got that top-down sense of when you sit down to write the piece that you're going to write on, X topic, how many words that's going to be, and therefore when you're finished and what the scope needs to be and how it fits with everything else.
And I deliver a manuscript that exactly does what it says on the tin. So if I say I'm going to deliver a book of 12 chapters that is 80,000 words, that's exactly what you'll get.
Yeah. How does that differ from academic writing?
I use exactly the same process for doing my PhD. That's how I learned how to write a book.
It's so interesting.
So in my doctoral thesis was the same length. Actually, it was 80,000 words. It was
yes, that's a normal monograph length. Yeah,
just the same length. Well, 80,000 really is like the length of it's the length of both my books. So there you go. So that's how I wrote my PhD. At that time, I was a lot younger and less experienced with writing, and the stakes felt very high because it's a situation where you're going to be examined on what you've written and so forth. And so it was quite a stressful experience. And but then when it came time to write a book for Kogan Page, 20 years later, I was like, oh yeah, I know what to do. I've done this before. You just make a plan and divide it up into chunks and write it from the top down, and then that way you don't waste any effort. You don't waste. When I was younger, I used to write a lot of stuff that I didn't do anything with it, and I'm not going to live to be 10,000 years old, so I'd rather just write material that someone's actually going to use. So top-down writing works for me because it's a very economical way to write.
They do say that no plan survives contact with reality for very long, and you've already talked about how you realized as you were writing that this had to change. So just tell us about that balance between having a structure that allows you to keep going, but also holding it lightly enough that you can adapt it as you go.
Well, the process that I've described, you can use that for writing any book of 80,000 words on any topic at all, So it was to what I'm describing really was just a kind of shift of focus. At first, I thought I knew it was going to be about retail and shopping. At first, I thought I was going to write a book which talked about shopping and consumers and what's going on when they're shopping, followed by some stuff about businesses and how they think about retail marketing. And about halfway along, there was a shift of focus, and I realised that actually that wasn't it. That I was writing about the present day, and then I was writing about the future, and then it became a much better, more interesting book, right?
But so is it just a matter of updating the Trello board?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. Oh my God, we went through. Yeah, that Trello board was updated on a daily basis, but the structure of the thing didn't alter. It was really just it's a form and content question. The form of it really didn't alter at all. What altered was the content, but because the structure is quite robust, you can put any content in there, But yeah, there was a point where I had to stop writing and just read everything I could get my hands on regarding technology in the future, which, my publisher was a bit like, you sure can we do this on time? You're going to be okay meeting the deadlines? I was like, yeah, don't worry. I'm a fast reader.
And it's interesting, isn't it? Because there are some people for whom that would be an absolute disaster. They were off down a rabbit hole and you're never going to get them back.
Oh, man, it was the best bit.
Yeah.
It was,
well, like that, I mean, my next question to you actually was going to be, what do you love most about it? What do you enjoy about writing? What really floats
your boat? The best bit of writing is reading. And it's just so great because, as you probably guessed by now, I'm kind of a workaholic. I said earlier, I work 90% of the time, and 90% of that time I'm doing work for my clients because that's what pays the mortgage. And I love it. I'm really in this really happy situation where I get to pick and choose who I work for and what kind of projects I do. So I'm always working on something interesting. However, I'm always working on somebody else's interesting thing, And so when I finally started to write books, which, I could have done it a lot earlier, but I just waited until I was really ready. I found myself in an amazing situation where I can go like, all right, then, well, I'm basically just going to close shop for, let's say, 4 months. and I'm kind of write things that are interesting to me.
Yes.
You know, and this is where I get to do the project that I want to do, and it's like doing a self-funded market research project.
Mm.
So the books I've written have all been written during the summertime, when business is a bit quieter in the summer anyway, normally, you know. So I would just say, well, that's it, you know. If you want to do business with me, you're going to have to wait till September, because I'm closing the business, essentially closing it for 4 months. And then it's like being a student again. It's intoxicating. You feel drunk on freedom. You know, you've got 4 months where your only job is to figure out what is interesting to you. What makes you want to get up in the morning? What are the books that you think are so exciting that you just cannot put them down? Well, your only job is to read your heart out for 4 months and write about what it makes you think about the world. What a treat. That's the best bet.
You know, if anybody's reading this and thinking, oh, is it worth it? I mean, that's like a shot of adrenaline, isn't it? It's just that if you look at it that way, look at it as a sort of almost like it's self-indulgence and self-development all kind of mixed into this glorious project that you do,
Yeah, it's
and it
amazing. Like,
increases your
imagine if you
mastery.
could just do anything you wanted. It's that,
This is what
you
you do.
know.
Brilliant. So if you could give somebody who's kind of maybe hesitating on the side at the moment, not quite sure whether to plunge in, or maybe they've plunged in and they feel like they may be drowning a little bit in the whole kind
Yeah,
of book writing thing, what would be your tip for them?
top tips. I think my biggest tip is that you must care passionately
Mm.
about your subject matter, because if you don't really care, there are so many business books out there, frankly, that are written by people who don't not really committed to the subject matter. You know, if you're thinking that you want to write a book because you'll make some money out of book sales, you just forget that idea right now. Okay, you're not going to make any money out of book sales. Those days are a long way in the past, right? So just don't. And in any case, if you're just writing a book because you think you can make some money out of it, readers are not stupid. They can tell. You know, they're not going to be happy with you when they found out that you just wrote a long commercial for yourself.
It's a big
You
sales
know,
piece. Mm.
and again, if you're just writing a book because you're trying to drum up business, I just honestly, why don't you just make life a bit easier on yourself and just make an ad? Just place an ad. It'll be a lot quicker and ultimately cheaper, because you're not going to be like unwaged for 4 months while you're writing. Like, why would you torture yourself if your only interest is to generate more business? So just don't. These are not good reasons for writing a book. There's only one good reason for writing a book, and that is because you care passionately about telling the story that you want to tell. That's it. That's the only reason there is. And if you feel it that much, that you're willing to like go without pay for 4 months and suffer and age 10 years and deal with all the many frustrations of the publishing process, if you're willing to do that to yourself, it's because you've got a story that has to be told, that you just can't sleep at night until you've got it off your chest. And if you really care about it that much, that your book will write itself, and it will be the best thing that ever happens. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you. And you've read a lot of books recently. I know this now. So
Yeah.
would you like to recommend us one?
Yeah, I'm just going to pick one, and it wasn't one of the many books on technology or the future that I read in preparation for writing this book on retail, although I read some terrific ones. But if we're going to, I think there's a difference between business books and books which happen to be written by business people, you know. So if we're talking classic business books, I'm actually going to recommend a book that I read a really long time ago, which was Blue Ocean Strategy, back in 2004. Which is Renee, let me see, Morburgoyne. I've probably pronounced that terribly wrong, and W. Chan Kin. And it's a really famous book, as you know. And I read it at a time when I've had my business for over 21 years now. And I was going through a period where I didn't know what direction I wanted to go in with the business, you know. And I guess I was feeling kind of insecure about it, you know. And so I went on holiday, which is the only sensible thing to do in a crisis. And went to Spain and sat on a sun lounger next to a pool and read Blue Ocean Strategy, and it gave me a lot of courage, because
You realized you were in the red ocean mindset.
because it's, for those who haven't read it, it's just telling you that, look, in your industry or the category that you work in, you've got loads of competitors and they're all fighting over the same thing because they haven't got any new ideas and they don't know what else to do, right? And so, of course, you feel insecure and anxious if you and like a bunch of other sharks are all fighting over the same small pieces of meat, you know? So just give yourself permission to have new ideas.
Move into the blue ocean.
And move into a blue ocean and start doing some things that that nobody's done before. And I know it's easy to say, but I found it quite liberating. And you know, the answer, the classic example in that book is Cirque du Soleil, you know, and how they revolutionized the idea of circuses. So circuses had previously been about lions and tigers and this and that. And the example in Blue Ocean Strategy is that, well, they got rid of the lions and the elephants and they made a sort of hybrid circus performance with ballet. I mean, I have a hard time believing that the people at Cirque du Soleil sat down and thought that up using a committee, because why would you? It's like, honestly, ballet is a very middle class thing. It hasn't got that much of an audience. It's like opera. It's got loyalists, but it hasn't got that much of a global audience, you know. If you were sitting down to design a business that was going to appeal to as many people as possible, ballet is not the number one thing I would put in it, you know. So I find it hard to believe that that Cirque du Soleil was designed in a rational way by a committee. It feels like it's just what somebody wanted to do.
Yeah.
Somebody just wanted to do it. In the same way that I just wanted to write a book about the future, so I wrote a book about the future. And that's what I got from Blue Ocean Strategy. Just honestly, just have courage and identify what it is that you want to do more than anything else. What would you do if there was nothing stopping you? Just do that and you'll be fine. You know, there you go. That's my top tip.
And it's a lovely counterbalance to the very rational tactics that you outline in the book as well. It's like you do all this stuff, this is sensible, and these are things that you can do that will improve your brand and your awareness and the response that you get from people. And there's this really intuitive human element to it as well, which I find very refreshing.
And what I know is that you know, I've been in the semiotics business since it was a very, very new thing, and I was one of only 3 practitioners in the UK when I first started out. Okay, and there was a lot of skepticism, and there was a lot of honestly, there was no reason to think really that it was going to launch successfully. And so many people had skeptical questions like, why this all sounds very subjective, and how do we know you're not just making it up, and what's all this nonsense about culture, and we're perfectly fine doing surveys, thanks very much, and all this type of thing, you know. And so I just used to talk about semiotics the way I've been talking to you about it this morning, and like enthusing and telling interesting stories about humans and shopping and where are we going as a society. And people started to give me work, and that's been my only method of promoting the business since the day I started. It's just that now I do it in book form, you know.
And it can reach more people.
That's, yeah, exactly. So I think that's my tip to anybody. Just identify what it is that you want to do more than anything else, and just be passionate and excited and committed, and just shine, let it shine, and then people will come to you and give you their money. Right, kids?
All right, kids. You heard it here. Rachel, if people want to find out more about you, more about the work you do, more about the books you've written, where should they go?
LinkedIn is a good place to look me up, always. LinkedIn is a good place to check me out, not because I post on there all the time, but because although I do sometimes, but I sometimes just post amusing pictures from my desk and stuff like that, but also because it's a great way to find out where I'm appearing. So I do a lot of conference speaking, and different types of events, digital events, live events. I do like dozens of these things each year. So lectures, I do a lot of guest lecturing. If you're an academic and you're listening to this, then I can probably be persuaded to come and talk to a student. So yeah, I do a whole lot of that type of thing. So LinkedIn is a great way to find out what's on, where am I appearing this season, and how you can get a ticket.
Who's your supporting act? Brilliant.
Yeah.
Rachel, it's been absolute joy talking to you. Thank you for unboxing for us. Thank you for sharing your really, really practical stuff and the hugely energizing and inspiring stuff as well. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Okay. Thanks very much for having me on the show.